Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, April 15th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle, very happy joined by Dan Rubin. A lot to get into. It's time for some spring gleaning. Yes, gleaning. We're going to talk about what we gleaned during spring ball, not just the spring game on Saturday. We'll, of course, get into all things spring ball, but what did we learn during the 15 practices, including the spring game, about the Buckeyes? Do we have more questions and answers leading in to the summer months? What did we learn about quarterback? What did we learn at right guard? What did we learn at will linebacker and some other spots? We're going to get into all that. Before we do that, I'll let you know about Dan Rubin's favorite company and mine as well, Manscaped. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. Did you know one man every hour, every day is diagnosed with testicular cancer? In fact, testicular cancer is the most common form of cancer amongst men aged 15 to 35. With April being National Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, our friends over at Manscaped have partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to help spread awareness for men's health and early cancer detection. Visit manscaped.com/TCS to learn how to check yourself for early signs of cancer. And as always, you can use promo code Bucknuts for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. I just used David, the handyman, great facial trimmer. You know, I know that, Patrick Murphy likes some of the other trimmers a little better, which is great. But, I don't need the text at 3 in the morning. Like, you up? I'm like, right. Yeah, now I am. And then he's like,
FaceTime.
I'm like, dude, just too much information. But, as far as the facial trimmer, handyman is awesome. Okay. In addition to providing the right tools and solutions for comfortable and easy grooming, Manscaped is committing to raising awareness and giving support for fighters, survivors, and families impacted by testicular cancer. That's why they will be donating $50,000 to the Testicular Cancer Society. Help save lives and balls by going over to manscaped.com/TCS and sharing their funny, educational, check yourself video. And while you're at it, grab 20% off plus free shipping with code Bucknuts, because like a famous American philosopher once said, take care of your mentals, your balls, and your chickens. There we go. All right. Let's start with quarterback. What do we learn at quarterback? What do we glean at quarterback, Dan Rubin? Do you think Will Howard leaves spring as the presumptive starter? Where's Julian Sand? Where's Devin Brown? Where's Aaron Noland? Where's Lincoln Keenholz? Just curious to get your thoughts.
Yeah, just as an intro to that, and we, excuse me, Dave, we discussed this in the past. I probably put less into the spring game in terms of what you actually see than most, and probably a little bit more into the Ryan Day post-game or post-scrimmage chatter than usual, because I thought the right questions were asked by the esteemed media. And, when you see Lincoln Keenholz come out second, I don't think anybody thinks Lincoln's second on the depth chart. So then you start to try to read into it. And like I said, it's very hard to make a determination. I thought Will Howard showed me that if they need to go out there and keep it conservative and just let the playmakers take the ball and run with it, he can do that. I don't think there's any question about that. There really was no downfield passing, in my opinion, in the game that you could even judge. So, I mean, it's hard to say, this guy, we'd heard Howard maybe had a little bit of issue getting the ball down the field. And there were some throws into the end zone where he doesn't have a howitzer. I question how detailed, how deep they got into the playbook, as it were. I don't think Chip showed you his best stuff.
No.
So I think it's pretty obvious that they want Will Howard to be the starter. I don't think that's revelatory. And it's the most conservative approach. I know J-Book has been big on he wants a vet in there when they go to Eugene. And I think that makes sense. When you see what it's like to play in front of 80,000, and there was a little pressure in there. I mean, I think it depends how much you read into when they went out there. Aaron Noland looked good, but he wasn't out there with the varsity. If you look at when the number 34 catches a touchdown pass, and I don't know who it is, they're deep into the roster. Julian Sand, I watched your post-game show. I thought you guys might have been a little tough on him. I think he clearly has I think when all is said and done, he will be the best downfield passer they have in terms of the modern guy gets in the pocket and hits that shot that you want to see. I will say what was encouraging is each guy was able to throw to the boundary. That's really the hardest throw long term. It's not the bomb. Will Howard's first completion, I believe, was to G. Scott down the left sideline. That's a hard throw. That's a 3rd and 16 throw. And that's really, once I saw that, I was pretty comfortable. I thought everybody looked pretty good, to tell you the truth. I feel kind of, Lincoln Kienholz to me is the guy who I have a feeling he needs to find like a 4-leaf clover or something. He's just very unlucky. I question whether the receiver knew what he was doing on the one interception he threw. And he's pretty mobile. I kind of like him. I have a little soft spot in my heart for him. I'm not like totally off of him because he played poorly. I thought they all played pretty well. To tell you the truth, I would be comfortable going into a game next year with almost each one just because you can scheme it up. While Will Howard does not have a cannon, you can scheme up deep shots with this team. I'm not worried about that. We can't be comparing people to CJ Stroud or even Justin Fields. That's a very high bar. I mean, to sit and compare people to CJ now, in retrospect, you're probably not going to get the result you want. So I don't think CJ had the supporting cast, even that he does. So, yeah, quarterback, I think it'll be Will Howard. The real question is who's going to transfer, if anybody.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I don't think there's any way you're going to have 5 scholarship quarterbacks on this roster when camp breaks. But again, I would love to be wrong. I'd love all 5 to stay. But I think the odds are one will transfer. Regarding Julian Sand, before we move on to right guard, yeah, I mean, I think I did caution people that I thought he had a bad spring game, but the bigger thing is, like, I'm with you. I don't put too much stock in the spring game. Like, if he went out there and set the world on fire, I'd be saying the exact same thing. Like, don't act like this kid has arrived because he went and set the world on fire in a scrimmage. I think it's very important to point out that overall, this kid exceeded expectations during spring ball. He was the fastest quarterback ever under Ryan Day to get his black stripe removed. He looked good the majority of the time that we saw him when practice was open to the media. He was shaky in the spring game. Okay, I'm still bullish on Julian Sand, but I've said all along I don't think he's going to be the starting quarterback as a true freshman. I'm, of course, sticking with that, and I think Will Howard's going to be the starter. But, yeah, I'm not down on Julian Sand at all, but I have to call a spade a spade. I thought he played poorly on Saturday. All right guard. What did we learn, Dan? What do we glean? We think Carson Hinsman is the man. That was very interesting to me. I'm sitting there like, wait a minute. Hinsman's out there with the ones? Okay, well, then Luke's been running with the ones but they've been moving guys in and out. Maybe they're just experimenting. Luke will be the next guy in there, right? No, Tegra was the next guy in there with that first-team offense. Luke was in there with that second-team offense. The team where Kienholz was the second quarterback out there, that was really the second-team offense. I found that really interesting. So if you base it on pecking order in the spring game, right now at right guard you have Hinsman, then Tegra, then Luke. Interesting, Dan.
Yeah, and then let's combo that, with what Day said afterwards. When the question was asked about right guard, he just started going like this. If you watch the tape, they're like, "Is it set? Is it set?" And he's like, "No." You know what I mean? He started saying no during the question.
When's the portal open exactly? No.
Exactly. So, we had in the boarding house the other day that Carson Hinsman was in some packages at right guard. We did not have it was the starting package. And I think you said this in the postgame show. Carson did not come here as a center. He was a guard tackle type. Very rare that guys that size play center on a high school team. You're usually the biggest BA in town. You're usually the left tackle or, some Josh Myers schemed up, you block everybody position. So that's usually an adjustment for most guys. Yeah, man, I have no idea. And I don't want to go back to my scouting report on Christian Mahogany, the right guard for Boston College, when I saw Ozzie Trapillo blocking out there at right tackle, looking like the Great Wall of China. I think they do need to probably go into the portal. They showed you that. They didn't. Well, that's not us saying this. If you go through the entire spring and you don't know who one of the starters is on your offensive line, keep in mind that's not a super common thing at Ohio State. They probably exit spring usually with a solid 5. I'm saying, the last 20 years, how many times have they emerged from spring having a true hole?
Last year.
But you know what I mean. It's usually a little more set. or usually you feel better about it. These past 2 years maybe are indicative of the fact that the offensive line is pretty clearly the unindicative spot. So I have no idea. I think we're good at left tackle, left guard, and center. And I think that Day made it clear. He even said out loud, Josh has played some guard. You don't say that out loud unless you're willing to move a guy to guard. So I get the sense now that they feel good about 4 spots. And they're going to either find a right tackle or a right guard in the portal, hopefully, that makes them feel really good. Not the easiest position to get out of the portal, believe me. Though they are not the highest of profile, it appears to me that that's probably the hardest position, tackle, to get out of the portal and get someone who would come in and start right away. So, yeah, that's an adventure. We're going to have to kind of go on with the team here.
Yeah, we know this for a fact now from talking to the NIL guys, and they don't like talking about specifics, but it's clear. And I don't even know if they really want this out there, but I don't think they'd mind. Quarterback is obviously the most valuable position, like highest paid position. It's crazy we're talking about this in college football, right? Quarterback's the highest paid position, shockingly, right? The most important position, not just in football, but you could argue sports, period, maybe baseball, starting pitcher, but starting quarterback doesn't start every 5 games. He starts every game. So starting quarterback is the most important position in sports, period. That's the highest paid. Number 2 is offensive line, to Dan's point, offensive tackle specifically. So finding an offensive tackle, it's hard and it's going to be expensive. Now, I think the latter is not going to be an issue. Just a guess. I mean, they've stepped it up with NIL. I can't imagine they're going to stop now. I was going to get to that later. Let's just get to that now. We're going to do portal predictions. We'll do some other positions later. And I do want to get back to Will Linebacker, what we learned during a spring ball there, and some other stuff of what we gleaned during spring ball. But I'm with you, man. They're going to lose some guys from, to the portal. Ohio State will, but I don't think it's going to be anybody where we're sitting there like, damn, I can't believe it. They lost that guy. I'm really upset about that. But I do think they need to land an offensive lineman. Now the question is, can they land a guy that can come in and even be a Josh Simmons type who kind of struggled early last year and I thought played pretty darn well the second half of the year and looks really good now. I mean, he's got 2 tickets to the gun show now, buddy. So we'll see. I think they've got to land one. Some people have said maybe land 3. No, but they could land one guy that can at least be a starter, like a solid starter. That would be huge at right tackle. Yeah. And then you could move Josh Fryer into right guard or whoever. Let the best man win at right guard. You then would have Fryer, Hinsman, Tegra, and Luke all battling for right guard.
Yeah, quarterback may be more expensive, but I think there are more of them out there. More than 50% of the starters in college football this past year were transfers. Right, which is insane. But not more than half of the tackles were transfers. They just cost more. There's just not that many guys that big. That's just, there's just more quarterbacks. There's just not. Think about how good you have to be to come be the starting right tackle at Ohio State. You got to be really good, man. So, any guy that's good enough to come in and start day 1 at right tackle at Ohio State is already right now an extremely valuable member of the team he's on. You know what I mean? This is not a guy they're wanting to get out. So is there a guy? The best case scenario would be, kind of an overachiever at a smaller school who wants a higher profile. That hasn't been the flavor of the transfer portal overall as much as I had expected. The transfer portal really is the biggie stealing from the other biggies in a lot of cases. So I don't know. My hope is they're all over it and they've come this far. When you say money, they've spent so much money that to not spend it on a right tackle, if that's the last thing, it would just be silly. It's time to complete the circle, as it were. Now, could they go into the season without it? Which is, I hate to say this, by far the more likely thing right now, unless you know something I don't. So I still think, I would love for them to get a guy good enough to come in and do that. I've got to see that happen. You did bring up a good point with Josh Simmons, and he was a spring portal ad last year. We forget. Good Lord, what would that have looked like without him? So, yeah, that's really, as I look at the team, that's probably my only even, and I put concern in air quotes because there are people who at some other sites with some other teams are probably laughing at the fact that we have the word concern in our vernacular. But yeah, right tackle or right guard, whichever it is, they probably need to get better.
I love having Chip Kelly here. That mitigates my concerns, but they definitely need to get another guy, in my opinion. I think, as you mentioned, I mean, Coach Day pretty much, without saying it, said it, shakes his head when he's asked about right guard before he even answers the question. Before the question's probably even out of the reporter's mouth, he's shaking his head. I mean, the body language experts will have a field day with that one. And you guess you don't have to be an expert to read the body language there. But, yeah, man, hopefully they can land one. And And Day even said when we asked him point blank, are you going to be looking to add to the portal? He's like, we're always,
right.
Basically he said, this is not an exact quote. We never leave any stone unturned. We're always looking to fill holes, and holes doesn't necessarily mean a starter. Could mean like a backup. Like I keep saying, I think they need to land, just for depth, another running back, because we don't want a situation like right now. It could even withstand an injury or two and be okay at running back. But what if it's like Peach Bowl all over again, where they have like 4 guys out? Like, we don't need like a walk-on wide receiver being the starting running back in the playoffs. So I'd like to see another running back, but just a depth guy, and we'll see about that. Look, we'll get to that later. Will Linebacker, what did we learn there? I think we learned that CJ Hicks, the light came on for CJ Hicks. Does that mean he's going to be a Buckeyes, finalist this year? I mean, I don't know, probably not, but like, I think he's starting to live up to that potential. Sonny's going to play a lot there too. They're probably going to rotate. They're going to have some 3-backer sets, Dan. I think CJ Hicks, he took a big step this spring.
He knows how to defend the wing T. If you look at that first play, he'd have blown that up. He was right in there. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about CJ a lot, Dave, and that you and I have seen him play probably a little bit longer than everybody else just because he's from around here. And, I was told when CJ left that it might take him a little bit longer just because he was never really put in a position. He was in the superhero position, which is, we have a problem in the game, send CJ. And it worked. I mean, they were very successful. Alter wins a lot of games, but it probably slowed down his transition time, almost in the way like Cade Stover became a really good tight end. What would he have been, and when would he have been that had he not been a superhero in high school and been and had a real position? So got to look at that. Very hard to judge the spring game in terms of how they actually played. I wouldn't put a lot into that. But yeah, Sonny is such a lightning rod. It's very interesting. Everything he does is kind of magnified by us too. I think we need to be a little bit patient with him and just let his talent come out. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be a more gifted human being than Sonny. I get that. And the fact that he's, a legacy, and his brother was a stud. But I think if we just sit back and allow him to kind of just play, we talked about this last year. If you go look at some of the hits Sonny had, it changed. He's different. He is different. I mean, guys go down immediately. We talked about that one play where he hit the quarterback. I think it was like 3rd and 2. He hit him at 1, and dude went straight down. Some guys go with momentum. Some guys hit you and you go right to the ground because it's like the laws of equilibrium and physics stop at one point and you lose. I'm very high on those guys. Very, very. I'm big on Cody Simon. It seems to me that Cody Simon made that play on Sam Hartman against Notre Dame, and from then his confidence came back. He started to have a little bounce in his step, and if you really look, he was one of their better linebackers last year. I'm big on Cody. Hasn't been as publicized maybe, so we aren't as into it. But as far as the other spot, I think they'll rotate. But it is good to see those 2 guys in there. I'll say that. If it wasn't those 2 guys, we may have been leading the show with that.
Yeah, James Laurinaitis even said, I love his honesty. He's like, I probably should have played Cody Moore last year. He's like, no, he didn't say probably. He's like, I should have played Cody Moore last year. Like, that's how good Cody was last year. So him coming back, this will be as a 5th-year senior. Talking about waiting your turn. Finally as a 5th-year senior, he's going to be a full-time starter. And then that's great to have him there. And I will say this. We talked a lot about Will Linebacker because, that was one of my biggest questions entering spring. How's Sonny going to look there? Who's going to leave spring as, the leader there? Is CJ going to step up? Seems like CJ stepped up, but Sonny's going to play a lot too, so it's a great problem to have. But I think another guy people aren't talking about enough at linebacker is Gabe Powers. I thought Gabe Powers looked good all spring. I thought he looked good in the spring game, but again, I put more stock in spring overall. And again, and he's a guy that, might be, unless they have injuries, he's going to be a backup this year unless they have injuries, but a guy that I think they're going to rotate more this year with it being a longer season, hopefully. And, he's a guy that I think is going to back up Cody Simon. And then next year is going to be a good starter. I love seeing a linebacker wear that 36 for the Buckeyes too, Dan. I love that. That reminds me of my childhood where it's like, hey, we had one after another. It was like, there's even before my time, 36 was good to the Buckeyes. Then it was like Marcus Merrick, of course, Chris Spielman. I'm like, oh yeah. And then it was a while till like we had a good 36 playing linebacker. Brian Roll maybe was the last one. He obviously is not on Marcus Merrick's level or Chris Spielman's level. But Gabe Powers is filled out, man. He was a big-time recruit. Came in about 214 pounds. Big boy, moves well. I like Gabe Powers in there as well. So I think we've learned a lot about the linebackers.
I want to talk about Gabe Powers.
Yeah.
He flashed in the spring game to me. As much as you can flash in a game, because you can't finish the play. The two guys on defense that looked to me like they were in the right spot every time, shocker, Caleb Downs and your boy Powers. Downs, man, I'm telling you. Good Lord. The two guys, I'm sorry, I'm going to digress one sec here. The two guys that are going to help the team the most in terms of what we would have had else instead of Downs at safety is almost unfair to add to the defense.
I know.
He's going to be the best player on the defense, no question, okay? Yep. And I'm not saying that offensively to anybody else. I have a feeling we'll look back on this and they'll be like, that was an obvious statement. But the other is backup running back. I love Quinshon Judkins. The idea that we're going to play a game with Judkins and no offense instead of Demonte Traynham possibly is an unbelievable improvement. It's like I can't even put into words. I mean, I think Judkins is the best back in the country. That's my opinion. I talk for pros. Now, I didn't know this, and I saw this. He's carried the ball 545 times already. He leads the Division I over the last 2 years in carries. So he made a smart move to come here and split it up for his draft value. But the idea of – and don't forget this. We never knew who the starting running back was for the last 2 years. We would get the injury report before the game, and it was like, okay, who got hurt? And you would never know. Some guy would come – the miracle ankle sprain in practice, I would be like, this is impossible. And then there was never any consistency. And then we also saw the difference, Trey versus everybody else. Now it's Trey and Judkins versus – man, that is some depth right there. That's incredible. That's almost on – those two additions were gratuitous, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, and I thought James Peoples looked solid. Sam Williams-Dixon is showing people. People are like, oh, did they reach on him? No, you can't find one Buckeye fan after watching him think, oh, yeah, we're glad he's on the team.
He looked good.
He did look good. He's quick, and he brings a different element.
He's bigger than I thought.
I mean, Travion is obviously can do that, but you can't have too much speed and elusiveness, and he's got that, and he's just going to get bigger and stronger. That was a good get. I think people forget, he was banged up most of the year at Pick North. For example, just because my daughters go to the school, I follow Hilliard Bradley football. Yeah. Bradley played them in the playoffs and whooped them, but Sam Williams-Dixon didn't play in the game. Well, if you're a Bradley fan, you're thinking that's good. But yeah, I think he was definitely underrated because he played at a small school. Then when he transferred to Pick North, he was banged up this past year as a senior. But Williams-Dixon looked good to me. So
they were on it though, Dave.
They are. And when I say they need to get another running back, this is what I'm talking about. They don't need another running back who's going to challenge for legit playing time. I just don't want to see I have PTSD from the Peach Bowl, obviously, but it wasn't even then. It was also the Michigan game that year. They started Chip Traynham, that was the year in 2022. He was actually playing linebacker earlier that year. Dallin Hayden was coming off the good game against Maryland, but pass pro was always an issue with Dallin. We found out. It wasn't fumbling; it was pass pro. So they didn't trust him. So they started they were down to Chip Traynham and Dallin Hayden for the biggest game of the year, and then
that's what I'm saying. Can you imagine?
I think they need one more just for depth because what if one of those two studs gets hurt or both of them, God forbid, get hurt? Would still be okay because of having James Peoples and TC Caffey and Sam Williams-Dixon, but those guys could get hurt too. So give me another running back in the portal.
Yeah, let me also say this. When I said I think Judkins is the best back in college football, I mean when you're projecting him for the NFL. I can make an argument. I think Trey is probably a better college back. And this is – I don't want to get too geeked out here because we're talking about the draft. You don't run away from people in the NFL. This idea of catching the ball in the flat and beating 6 people and running down the Malik Neighbors BS that you're seeing come out over Marvin. You can't do that in the NFL. Those opportunities don't exist. So just like Trey, you're not going to get the corner in the NFL and run for 80 yards twice a game. No one has ever done that in the NFL. Judkins, to me, is the guy, 3rd and 3, first down back. He's a good pass blocker. He can do a little bit of everything, and he's built for durability. So embarrassment of riches, and happy to be on this side of it for damn sure.
And you lose a solid guy like Dallin Hayden, you still feel like you don't feel like it. You are loaded at that position. You got the best 1-2 punch in college football. And I don't even know what second place would be, but I imagine there's a giant delta between first and second. And it's crazy. I've talked about this before. They have about the exact same amount of rushing yards. Now, Travion's played an extra year, but they're both right around 2,750 rushing yards, Trey and Quinshon. Early in this season, they're both going to get to 3,000 career rushing yards each. That's insane. I'm here for it, man. Like you keep saying, like I'm here for it. I love it. I'm getting fired up just talking about it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to the portal. All right, so we need them to land an All-American right tackle, right? We're on the same
deal.
So just get that done, guys. No, they need to land. They need to land an offensive lineman. I think they need to land a offensive lineman that can be a starter. They need to land a running back just for depth. Anybody else that I don't think they need to land anything else. I mean, maybe you wouldn't turn anybody away. That's the thing. They're going to leave no stone unturned, but they don't really have any needs other than offensive line.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you as I'm very good at. Also, you got to keep in mind, if you bring somebody in and if we're bringing someone in now who's going to make an impact, you're going to have to pay them, correct? That's NIL. You're going to pay them more than someone you already have in there? That becomes a challenge, right, at this point. You'd have to get someone really freaking good at any position now to be able and start day one. Now, if they're going just for depth pieces, like the Miami of Ohio running back committed to Mississippi State, Amos, that was the guy I wanted, kind of as like a 4th back. But he's going to go to Mississippi State and be the starter. You know what I mean? People don't want to come to Ohio State and be like our gratuitous Sega, Dave and Dan GM backup. They want to play. So if you think about that, to come in and play day one at Ohio State right now, just go through the roster, how good would you have to be? You'd probably have to be like a lottery pick. Think about that. You're going to start at corner over who? You're going to start at defensive end, defensive tackle? They don't need a quarterback.
Can you even get on the 2 deep on this deal? Find somebody in the portal that can get on this 2 deep. You got to beat out Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry and Mitchell Melton to get on the 2 deep at the end. You got to beat out Caden McDonald, Hero Canoe, and Jason Moore to get on the 2 deep at D tackle. Good luck. They're just so stacked. The secondary might be the best secondary I've seen at Ohio State, and there have been some absolute elites. I'm going to be repeating myself, going back to 96 and all these great ones, 16, 19. This one might be the best. 2024 might be the best. We corner and safety combined. It's just they're stacked. They're deep. Jermaine Matthews is your number 4 corner. Malik Hartford's a backup as a second-year guy. Jahad Carter can't see the field here. Goodness
gracious. And I love Hancock. He might be the most underrated guy on the team. He's got the nose for the ball. You know what I mean? Yeah. Look, it's a good situation for sure. I'm hesitant to think who they can get in the portal if it's not one of the spots we already talked about.
People are giving me I was talking about this on the postgame. People are giving me I love it. Yeah, give me a hard time. Corey on YouTube. Does Dave really wants to die on that hill that we need 6 running backs? I know. And I love Dave. Listen, I want to be clear. I love the 5 they got, right? But I also know what in all of sports, what has the shortest shelf life for professional sports? Running back.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Was it 3.5 years total?
Yeah. And any professional sport, any position, not just in football, name it, it's running back. So I love the 5, including Caffey. Love him. Yeah. Love him. Yeah, I do want a 6th. Yeah, I'm greedy. Call me greedy. That's fine. Okay, let's get into this. All right. Who is Ohio State going to lose? I don't even want to give specific names unless, you could throw names out there if you want to. I don't really care.
Everyone has the depth chart in front of them.
Yeah, I think they're going to lose a quarterback. Is that fair? I don't know who. I hope not. Do you think they'll lose a quarterback? Maybe not necessarily tomorrow when the portal opens. For those that are wondering, the portal opens officially tomorrow. But sometime
they should. They should, and I think everyone thinks the guy that would leave would be Devin Brown, but this dude is bringing out like fine pieces of art to show how dedicated he is. You know what I mean? To the cause. He's given literally no indication that he wants to leave. Has he? I haven't seen it. If anything, he's given the opposite. And he would be the one that you would think, and then you would think, okay, Aaron Nolan might leave. Aaron Nolan checks every box to me so far in terms of like what he says, how he acts, when he texts out like Buckeye Nation. We're doing right when you would expect someone to text out, I'm not playing enough. He texts out, I love everybody. I love it here.
And he played well, right?
And I really like the guy.
Yeah, he played well, right?
Exactly. I mean, he
had that one pass early that looked like he kind of shot put it. I don't even know if it was his fault. It was kind of a short pass. Maybe he kind of just looked odd and it was broken up. But I thought overall Aaron Nolan played well.
Agreed.
And if you're Aaron Nolan, people are like, oh, he's going to transfer because look at the pecking order. Will Howard got the start. Then Devin Brown's 2. And then basically Julian Sands 3 or Lincoln Kienholz. Lincoln Kienholz was the first team, second team quarterback, if that makes any sense. Then Sands was next. Whatever. Sounds like Sands ahead of Kienholz to me. Some people are saying, see, Aaron Nolan's 5th on the depth chart. He's going to transfer. It's like if you're Aaron Nolan, you're looking around like, I can beat all these guys out.
Right.
Which one of these guys am I scared of? You know, so I think Air's going to stay. I don't know, but one of these guys I think is going to transfer. I don't know who. I know it won't be Will Howard or Julian Sayin. I think one of the other 3 guys will probably transfer. I don't know who.
I would be hard pressed to answer that question if I had like cash on it. I'm serious. I guess maybe they threw Kienholz out there to give him some airtime to possibly, let him audition for another. But I'm grasping at straws at that point. I mean, I don't have a good argument why either one would do it, other than there's a lot of quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Like, usually I would think, and in other quarterback competitions. Like, for example, when it was Joe Burrow and Dwayne Haskins and Burrow transferred, it was like, well, he's not going to play. It was kind of obvious. I don't feel that right now. And there's even more dudes. So maybe we're just wearing our gooder colored glasses, or, maybe they'll have 5 quarterbacks. Keep in mind, if you wanted to play quarterback somewhere, wouldn't this be the spot? If you were going to have a place that did have 5 quarterbacks, this would probably be the spot. We'll see.
We shall see. Our guy Josh Pate says to expect chaos. So I expect chaos because my guy is well connected. So I think they'll lose a quarterback. Before I get to I'm going to go through positions I think they might. So I think they're going to lose a quarterback. I hope they don't. I hope they keep all 5. Ryan Day's goal, by the way, is to have 4 scholarship quarterbacks on his roster each year. Okay. That's his goal, is to have 4. Sometimes he hasn't had 4. He's had 3. He's got 5. So you add it all up, one's probably going to transfer. I hope I'm wrong. Wide receiver. I think they're going to lose a wide receiver, but it's going to be someone buried on the depth chart. It's not real. No, we're done with ads. That was a little gratuitous.
I thought that was funny. Those dudes like calling us. You are Jermaine Reynolds. I may need to hire you, dude. You're on top of it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. One of our many loyal listeners of the show is Jermaine. I love it. I love looking in the comments and seeing I recognize more than half the people at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to lose a quarterback. I think they're going to lose a wide receiver, but it's going to be someone who's like out of the mix. I could name maybe a name or two of maybe a 3rd-year wide receiver who is never going to play, or maybe even a guy entering his 4th year who's never going to play, or isn't going to play as much. But I'm not going to name names. All right, safety. I think they're going to lose a safety, but I don't think it's anybody who's really in the mix. I think it might be maybe even a guy that already had transferred here from somewhere else. And he was actually a pretty good starter at his previous school. Just a guess. Offensive line. I think they're going to lose an offensive lineman who's not in the mix, a veteran who's been here for a while, who is clearly not going to play. So I think they're going to lose I think they're probably going to lose like 5 guys, maybe more than that, to the portal. But I don't think, tell me if you agree or disagree with this, Dan. I don't think it's going to be anybody that we're sitting there like, crap. Like I said earlier, I don't think they're going to lose anybody that is really in the plans for meaningful snaps this year.
That I agree with. The only crap would be a quarterback. And that's just, we talked about this. You almost have to evaluate the portal in 2 ways: quarterback and then every other position. Quarterback is just different. It's crazy, to tell you the truth. Like we said, over 50% of Division I quarterbacks who started last year were transfers, and I think the number is actually closer to 60% than 50%. And by the way, it's not going down. Okay, the genie's out the bottle, as they would say. So yeah, I mean, look, this is not a difficult thing to do. You can get the depth chart out, go look at it, and when you see sophomore above junior, junior's looking to transfer. That's how it's always been. I'm not telling that's not news, especially at a position where there's not a lot of rotation. So like quarterback, that's why the guy boogies. Aside from that, we are in a really nice spot where the team, there's a lot of expectations. You're going to be on TV every week. If you really can play, you would not leave. So that's pretty much how it goes. You don't come here to leave after they give you a good shot at playing time. So anybody in the mix, and keep in mind, behind closed doors, they know who they want to keep around. And those people have been, massaged and tempted. And don't forget, no one's here for free anymore. So there's other incentives that weren't here before this that might want to keep someone closer to their, let's say, Velociraptor truck or whatever they're getting these days.
Last thing, if we were running the Bucknuts Sportsbook, which we need to open because sportsbooks make money. They don't lose money. They win in the end. When we open the Bucknuts Sportsbook, I'm going to set the over-under for guys that are going to lose in the portal this window, 5.5. I'm going to take the over of my own over-under. I think they're going to – but I don't think it's going to be a lot more than 6. But I'm going to take the over at 5.5. And I'm not counting Dallin Hayden, who they've already lost, even though technically they haven't. But I'm not even counting him. So other than Dallin Hayden, I'm putting it at 5.5. You're taking the over or the under. Players Ohio State will lose.
I just love the mention of White Lightning. Definitely partied with White Lightning in Vegas one time. I got a good – when we do the story portion of the show, premium, when we sign off, I'll tell the Doug Donnelly story about Vegas. I haven't reviewed the roster like that to the point, but I'll take the over with the faith in the portal being portal gone, portal palooza wild. And keep in mind, Dave, we have a tremendous deal coming tomorrow. Transfer portal palooza 24/7 is really taking this and running with it. There'll be a full day coverage of it. You'll be able to watch it live. It's going to be treated like draft day or National Signing Day. There'll be, live ticker of everyone coming up. Keep in mind,
I'll be on the show. This is, exactly. They're even getting a barrel of the basement, or a bottom of the barrel, I should say. They're even getting me on there. So I'll be on the Transfer Portal Palooza show tomorrow at some point. I'm still waiting to see exactly when, but I'm glad you plugged that. That's going to be a lot of fun. And we've got a national writer who does a great job, Chris Hummer, who's that's like his main focus is the portal. And you can see why. It's as important, dare I say, as recruiting these days.
Also, Matt Zenitz is a guy you want to follow. He's kind of more of a recent addition to 24/7. He has been brought in just to work the portal. And I'm telling you, the dude works the portal. He has broken a lot of stories. I'm not kidding. Matt Zenitz, Zenitz. You can follow him here. We'll get him on the show eventually. But he's a stud, man. I'm telling you, he's definitely a guy to follow. He has been all over the portal. He's broken a majority of the stories that you've seen. So he will be on there as well. And, look, we can always hope, Dave, just like Von Bell got up there and shocked us that one time. Let's see Ozzie Trapillo get on Zoom and hold his own personal press conference. I know that's so unethical for me to be doing that. Like back in the day, if you'd been doing this, we probably would have gotten a call from the mainframe being like, the 24/7 people at Boston College are so pissed.
They're tampering. The Bucknuts guys are tampering. First they got Ed Warner fired. Now they're tampering. We can't tamper. We're not part of the program. Right. We can just talk, and it's not tampering. But we did get Ed Warner fired. We didn't really. For those that don't know the story,
according to him,
we still have the receipts. Ed Warner reached out to us on the Twitter machine to thank us in so many words. We'll clean it up for a family-friendly show. He thanked us for getting him fired. He blamed Bucknuts for getting him fired because we wrote negative things about him when he was the offensive coordinator. It's like, we were just posting the stats, Coach. I think you guys had negative yards against Clemson. That caused Warner and Tim Beck were so bad, it caused Urban Meyer to do something called bring in Kevin Wilson, who we thought that's the guy. And he also brought in another guy at the same time, Ryan Day. Completely overhauled the offense. That worked out pretty well. But we got Ed Warner fired, so there you go. Zed Key going to your Dayton Flyers. What do you think about that?
Like our Dayton Flyers, don't you think?
Going to raise the roof at UD Arena now? Raise the roof.
I got bad news for everybody. I think Dayton was better than Ohio State last year.
Whatever. They played in that scrimmage and Ohio State won, so.
Yeah.
Dayton got to the tournament and won a game. I don't think Ohio State really has an argument there. Now, if Ohio State had an Ohio State level coach and not a DePaul level coach for the whole year, who knows? Who knows? We saw a completely different team. But, yeah, Chris Holtman coaching against Dayton, not in a scrimmage to begin the year, but in a real game, Dayton would have won. Diebler against Dayton?
Ohio State should not be losing to Dayton basketball. Let's just be honest about that. That's not a strong sign for the program. In fact,
you're welcome, David, for getting Ed Warner fired. By the way.
Dave, seriously. And
we brought in Ryan Day. Urban gets credit for it. The genesis was right here. Bucknuts.
I'll tell you what. Were you on the? I don't know. There was a discussion that I wanted to hop in on that you guys might have had. Maybe it was Steve. You know who we've not given enough credit for the offense, though? We say, when they brought this guy in, the guy that does not get enough credit is Tom Herman. We talk about everyone's like, the offense. Yeah. The offense really went to the next level. I know people don't want to admit this, given his choice of action since then. The offense went to the next level when he came in here. Remember, I don't know if you remember this, Dave. When we were trying to replace Herman, I created this very simple thing, because we never went to third down. We always did. We got all these yards on first down. And I put all these numbers in and I said, okay, what other offense, an offensive coordinator can we get to work it out? And it was East Carolina. And who's the head coach at USC? I'm blanking.
Lincoln Riley. So that was a pretty good offense. Tom Herman. Now, since then, Tom, he was a great offensive coordinator. No doubt. Tom Herman was a great offensive coordinator.
Great.
He was a good head coach at Houston.
He was.
It didn't work out at Texas. He was a great offensive coordinator.
And keep this in mind, he was so hot coming out of Houston. LSU and Texas were battling for the dude. Yeah, battling. Right. Think about that now. If LSU and Texas were battling for a candidate. So we digress because it's what we do, but wanted to give old Tommy H some credit. Rare in these parts.
Yeah, but he did help the Buckeyes win a national title, so I always have a soft spot in my heart for Tom Herman, despite him calling backs one night and having his wife chew him out. We've got all the stories. Things, and I'm not joking. We'll talk.
We make fans, Dave.
I'll tell it on a future edition of Tom Herman calling backs to have his wife yell at backs.
Here's what we need to do. We need to have a show with the Tom Herman one, with the Ed Warner, and then I have saved a voicemail from the when the Michigan crap was going on earlier this year of a source in Detroit, and I put source in super air quotes, offering to sell me a sex tape of a Michigan coach, which is fake, obviously, but I saved it because it is pure comedy, and also let you know that we see some goofy stuff behind the scenes here. We are blamed for major coaches getting fired. We get sex tapes offered to us. So if you wanted to go get a job at a place that's a thrill a minute, come to Bucknuts.
Yeah, and that's just the stuff we can tell you about. All right, great stuff from Dan Rubin. And thank you to all of you. Another huge live audience. Appreciate all you guys and our live audience and all the comments. Appreciate everybody listening to the podcast-only version, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you to everybody. We appreciate it very much. Thanks again to Dan. Thanks to all of you. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.